Hello beautiful people, it's Robyn Thomas here with Resemble Me by Robyn. Welcome back to my channel. As you can tell by the title, on today I'm going to be teaching on micro braids. Micro braids. If you are interested in micro braids, or you don't know what micro braids are, or you want them but not sure if your hair is a candidate, or you're not sure if you can put them in, if somebody else should put them in, how they should be put in, this is definitely the video for you. So stay tuned. Alright, so before I actually get into how to install micro braids, I want to talk about micro braids. Micro braids are one of the highest viewing videos on my channel. I have a couple of micro braids videos and they all seem to do very well. Micro braids are a style that has been around for a very long time, but people or braiders have stopped offering them, and I believe too the natural hair community had something to do with them decreasing. And I'm gonna explain, or you'll understand why once I explain about micro braids. So micro braids, as you can see, are very tiny braids. They are braided down the length of your hair, but not all the way. So they're braided about, on average, 4 to 6 inches, just depending on who's installing it, depending on how long your hair is, and other factors. So when micro braids first came around, people had perms. Okay, so the human hair, needing human hair for it is kind of like, when you put tracks in and for sew-ins and stuff like that, you want to have a very lightweight, as natural to for us it was a perm typed hair as possible. Okay, so braiding down 4 to 6 inches, and 6 inches really is a lot. So I'll say like braiding down 4 inches of the hair shaft. If you had a perm, you could leave the rest of your hair out because your ends were straight. It didn't really necessarily matter about your roots. As long as your ends were straight, it really didn't matter how long your hair was. So that's one of the reasons why I feel like there's been such a decline in people getting micro braids, because their natural hair is too long. I know for me, I wouldn't do it because my hair was, too long. I transitioned when I was natural, and then by the time I was natural, my hair was too long for micro braids. For the person that was braiding my hair, I had my friend braiding my hair at the time. I wasn't even braiding my hair. That was probably, that was literally when I started like really braiding my own hair. Anyways, so yeah, micro braids were for people who had perms. It was always, I always felt like it was good to not have a fresh perm before getting micro braids, because the human hair, the luster is a little bit more silkier as opposed to coarse. And so to kind of like help it not slip and stuff like that, and so that it's not so fragile, because putting a perm on your hair does break down the hair strength. So you don't want to put it on hair that's already like fragile. But yeah, so for this client, I opted to braid down the shaft of her hair. She had different lengths all around her head because she had her hair cut like kind of in like a short style, to where it was longer at the top and then shorter on the sides and the back. So I just braided down past the length of her hair because she is mostly natural. She does have a few straight hairs at the top. However, it's not enough to say she's not natural. She's still transitioning. She does need to clip that off. But other than that, she is natural. So I wanted to make sure her hair was fully covered, as I do for all of my micro clients. I do have other videos of people who have longer hair. And even when her hair was permed and it was longer, I have some micro videos. I'll be sure to link all of those in the description if you want to watch any other micro braid videos. So I am showing you how I put it in, but I will actually explain it a little bit later. So micro braids are... depending on who's putting them in, how many people are on your head, etc., determines how long it'll take, how fast the braider is. It determines how long it'll take. So this probably takes me about, I'll say these days, probably about like 10, maybe a little over, maybe 10 hours, depending on how long their hair is. If the hair is longer, it does take me longer because I'm braiding longer down the shaft. If the hair is like 1.5 to 3 inches and I'm only braiding 4 inches, that probably takes me about 9 or so hours. We do take a lunch break as well because, you know, we be needing a break. I be moving, I be working, and I be needing a break. But anyhow, and it's good too to be able to get up and kind of stretch a little bit. So if you know that you're not a person who likes to sit down for a long time, then maybe micros are not for you, because the install takes long, and then the takedown, it doesn't have to take as long depending on how it was installed. However, it is very, very tedious because they are super small braids. So you want to be mindful, okay, are you going to want to take it down, or are you going to want to pay someone to take it down? If not, don't even invest in it, because micro braids can be worn for like 3 months. And your hair could grow tremendously because it's such a lightweight style. It could really grow really well, you know, if you keep your scalp clean, if you keep your hair moisturized. It can be a really great protective style if you know how to manage it, and you know, the upkeep for it. I believe it's a really great protective style. You know, I have clients who grow their hair out for micro braids. I've grown my hair out while I was transitioning from being perm to natural. You know, I use micro braids, one of those installs, for about 3 or so months. You know what I'm saying? I wear micro box braids now. I've had about 2 sets of them. You know, I love micro braids, and they're super small, so they're super versatile, excuse me. I personally have realized I don't really do styles for versatility. I do styles more so where it's easy for me to get to my scalp, to where I can wash it, and I can moisturize it and stuff like that. So micro braids are a very good option for being able to easily get to your scalp, easily moisturize your hair, you know, all of your hair, because it's already stretched, in a stretched state, and it's individualized. So there's some really great pros to them if you know how to you know, take care of your hair. You have to just remember, you can't neglect your hair in a protective style. A lot of people say, oh, braids broke my hair off. No, you had braids in your head for 2 months and you didn't put any water on it because you were scared of your natural hair doing what it does, which is frizzing a little bit. You will be fine. Okay, we don't compromise our hair for a style. All right, we find ways to manage, but never to compromise the hair. So always remember that. Something else to think about with micro braids, they can be an expensive style. You know, nowadays they're running at 300 plus. Some places may charge a little less. It just depends on where you're located. But yeah, so something you want to think about is the cost, and you also want to think about the cost of the hair. So depending on if you're using virgin hair, if you're just using human hair from the hair store, it just depends on your preference. If I'm being totally honest, okay, this is me to the T, okay? I tell my clients, you don't have to buy micro braid hair that's over, or let's say over the price range of $30 to $60 a pack. And $60 is on the high end. I'm from Little Rock, Arkansas. All right, $30, $29.99. Okay, I got 2 packs. I got me a number 4 for the back, and I got me a number 30 for the top. I was spending $60 plus tax, and that's it. And I used a pack and a half of the hair. Now in San Diego, where I live, it's a little bit more expensive on this coast. That was in the South. We on the West Coast now. And so spending about 60 to 90 is not off at the hair store. And if you want to go to places like His and Her Hair Company, you can be spending anywhere from $200 to $500 depending on the quality of hair you are installing. So the hair that we are using for her today, I'll go ahead and talk about this, is His and Her Hair Company. However, this was kind of like a last minute. She needed it for an event, and I was able to, she's a longtime client of mine, so I was able to get her in. And so she was like, I just looked and searched and found every bundle of hair we didn't use or that was left over from micros. She's been getting micros for me for years now. So whatever little scrapes and scrapes she got, we got. And so some of them could be as old as like 2 years, or some can be as new as a couple of months, so we're not really sure exactly what type of hair it was, what type of His and Her Hair Company or hair company hair it was, although we do know it was His and Her Hair Company. And they have a lot of options on their website. You can just go to it and see the price range that you would like to spend. Maybe go to YouTube, or stay on here and look up some videos to see different people's reviews. She never really has problems with the hair. She's used different kinds, like I've said. So this is probably like a mix today. I don't really ever hear her complaining about them. For me, the bundles are very thick. No matter, I've had clients who spent $200 and clients who spent $500, and all the bundles were pretty thick, compared to especially the length. So even the longest ones that I've done, which I'll be sure to link, I think the hair was 34 or something inches, and those bundles are still very nice size, nice weight to them. So His and Her Hair Company definitely is good for consistency in the bundles. Something I do want to say, sometimes people say, well, I wonder if I can use hair off the weft. You're just going to have to use a lot. I have witnessed, I've tried to do them on myself. Actually, I bought some bundles, and I told myself too, because normally shorter bundles, they're more full all throughout. So I said, well, I'm gonna get some shorter bundles, and I'll just go for a bobish type look. I'll cut it into a bob. So I think I got 12 inches or so. But it was still thin. When you cut it off the weft, it's it doesn't have as much hair as you think that it has, which makes you have to use a lot of hair at the base of the micros, and then it becomes really thin. I've also saw some YouTube videos where people have done it with hair off the weft, and their ponytails, it just kind of looks like it's not done. It doesn't look like it's done in the inside. You know how sometimes we'll do the perimeter and then we'll come back for the middle? That's kind of how it looks. Now, if you guys see any videos to where it looks very full and you've seen them use it, or known of them to use it off the weft, please, let me know so that I can find it, because I wouldn't mind, trying that and having that as an option, because I get that question very, very often. I've tried to do it before, and it really, matter of fact, twice, and it didn't work. I've tried for crochet braids, and then micros around the perimeter, and then I've tried just with micro braids, and I didn't have the best outcome with them. So maybe it was the hair I chose, but so that's something else to think about. I'll say, if you just absolutely want to try it, maybe try getting longer lengths so that you can cut what looks see-through. So that could be something to consider. But you are probably going to be spending a pretty penny when it comes to the install and the quality of the hair. But again, that depends on your budget. So that's something else to think about. Now, I always tell my clients, look, you're about to have a style in for 3 months. There's 3 months of not having to worry about your hair. There's 3 months of versatility. There's 3 months of being able to really wash and moisturize and cater to your strands as they're stretched out. 3 months of not having to worry about paying for your hair, and sitting for 9 or so hours. I think it's worth it, but that's just me. Everybody's different, but that's just me. One more thing that you really want to think about is whenever you are thinking of purchasing the length of your hair, if you want true to length hair, you need to go up about I would say, about 2 inches. So if you want, I'll say like 2 to 4 inches, just to be on the safe side. So if you know that you want hair that is 20 inches long, I would say buy 24 inches of hair, because, and you're going to learn in this next part of the video, that the hair is going to be folded over in order to create it 3 strands in order to make it a braid. So you are going to lose some of that length. Okay, so that's something else to think about when it comes to price. So now you've gone from 20 inches of hair to 22 or 24 inches of hair. All right, so let's get to the good part. How do we do micro braids? All right, so first off, I like to section the hair in sections. So for me, it's a mind thing, right? I have to do sections so that I can make sure that I'm staying on some type of time. Like, this helps me to say, okay, I'm giving myself, depending on the length of the client's hair, I'm giving myself 10 hours to finish this install. I need to have completed this back part in 2.5 hours this side, an hour this side, an hour, and so forth and so on, right? So it kind of helps me to keep a good pace, to challenge myself, to keep going fast. And so what I try to do is actually not be mindful of the time of the first section, because that first section will kind of let me know like what my gear is that day, like how is that finna be when it comes to micro braids. And that also helps me to know where do I want to, or what sections do I want to braid in. So I will explain what I mean by that, right? I had to go ahead and add some oil, a little couple drops, because her hair is very it's a little dry. She has some other skin and hair scalp issues, so that's something else that she has, and she knows that she has. So anywho, yeah, so I try to go ahead and do the first section so I can say, okay, that took me X amount of time. I apologize for not knowing. This video was taken, I'm gonna say June, maybe July, but I'm gonna go with June. So it's been a while. It's almost October. But so yes, I like to do the first section and I say, okay, I look at how big the section is and say, all right, if it took me this long to do this, I'm going to do sections where I feel like it should take me this amount of time. Or when I part it into sections, I'll say this is about how much time this should take me. That helps me to keep a good pace. I try to do probably about 8 to 10 sections depending on what it is. This may not be 8. I'm not sure. Again, I can't remember because I didn't part out the back. I just went ahead and installed the back. So I'll go ahead and find out. She likes to have her hair lay a certain way, like a certain side. So I'll go ahead and part it. I part all of that so that I don't have to worry about that later. I find that doing tedious stuff like parting is time consuming, like when I'm trying to just keep going. If I stop, I'm gonna mess up my momentum. I need to just keep braiding and braiding and braiding, and then I'll be fine. That is why I do all of this part first. All right, so once I have all of my sections parted out how I want them, I use my gel to kind of go along the perimeter of the section that I'm about to braid. I go ahead and comb that in a little bit so that it gets through the whole section of the hair that I'm about to part. So I like to part straight lines. Now, it does not necessarily have to be like 100% straight. I just like straight lines because I feel like it's easier when it goes to washing your hair and moisturizing your hair and different things like that. Okay. That's why I choose to do things on my clients that I find easy for myself. I have a kinkier hair curl pattern, so finding the easiest way for me is easy for them, especially the looser their curl pattern is. So I like to do straight lines, make sure those lines are as straight as possible. These are going to be very small parts, so you don't want those little bitty pieces of hair coming from another section entering into those, because those little pieces of hair can really hurt when it starts to when you start to manipulate the braids, especially if they manipulate them prematurely. So all right, after that, what I do, I make a line going vertically, and then I make horizontal lines. I like to pre-part. I may not pre-part the whole head, but I do like to pre-part little sections that are just manageable. I feel like it wouldn't be smart of me to pre-part all of this whole section, because then I feel like the product would not be activated the same way as it would if I were to part it how I'm parting, row by row, or column by column, and parting them like I'm parting them now and braiding them. So I feel like I get everything that I'm needing to make this style the best that I need to make it. All right, so just going through and detangling that little section, because her hair wasn't necessarily all the way blown out, but I knew that I could work with it. So I'm taking this and I take a section of the micro hair. You have to be very careful because the hair is free. It's not on a weft or anything. So I make sure I'm holding it very tight with my non-dominant hand. With my dominant hand, I pull a small piece. Not super duper small, but small, because they are micro braids. All right. I take about 1/3 of the hair, and I'm going to fold it over just the same as we do when we're installing traditional box braids, right? So how I was telling you earlier about how you're going to lose some of your length. You want this part to be thick. You don't want it to be so thin, because the upkeep and then the takedown is just not going to be the easiest, especially when you're watching your hair throughout your install, as I encourage all of my clients to do. Keep up with your wash routine and moisture routine, as that will give you the best results from your install. So you remember how I was telling you the hair was silky? You see how I'm able to just slide that out to however long or short I want it to be? I like to do that, right? So I like for it to go a little bit past the client's hair if the hair is longer. So that when I go to confuse the ends, and I'll explain what confuse the ends, that's like my most asked question. I'm going to explain it on this video. What does it mean when I confuse the ends? I'm going to explain that when I get there. But I like for the hair weave to pass the hair as much as possible without taking too much length off from the client's micro braiding hair, but to cover enough so that I don't have to mess with the client's hair or confuse the client's hair within the braiding hair. So confusing the hair ends really just means that I'm borrowing hair from another section, but I don't like to do that before I get past the client's hair. Sometimes I may have to, but I try not to. Again, with micro braids, it's a little tricky because you want to make sure that you're not taking away too much of the client's length of the hair that they purchase. Or if you know that the hair is super long, go ahead and tell them, you know, hey, purchase a longer length because I have to take some of that off. If you want true to length, buy 2 to 4 inches longer. All right, when I'm installing my braids, I definitely like to split the hair in half. I do not like to do a single strand because, again, I don't like confusing the hair or confusing the client's hair within the 3 strands. Like whatever strands that I start with, I would like for it to be throughout the duration of the or the length, of the braid. So I'll split it into 2 at like that's it. Like I won't do I won't keep that one section and do the micro braid. I'll split it into 2, and I won't do 3 because I feel that it would be too thin. Now, the only way I would say that you should go ahead and split it into 3 strands is if you have a client whose head or whose hair, is very, very thick. Okay? That helps you to be able to keep the same size parts as opposed to smaller parts. So breaking it into smaller sections helps to create more slim braids. Okay, so if you do have a client whose hair is extremely thick, then you most definitely want to break it into 3 sections so that you don't have to make smaller micro sections. You'll be there forever. That's a little tip for you. Okay, so once I do that, and we've already went over how to create the 3 strands, I'm going to grab it and anchor it with my left hand, or anchoring it with my right hand. I'm going to make sure that I gather it with my left hand and get a good grip. And then I'm going to go in a braid motion. Okay, I'm looking back to make sure that you guys can see. Oh my gosh, it's going so. I'm so sorry about the gum. All right, so once I have it in there, if you notice, my fingers are right up under there. Nothing is loose. This is how I keep my feather fingers. This is why people say it doesn't hurt. I like to braid right up underneath. I may not necessarily, I don't braid tight, like to where it hurts. I braid very, very close. So I had that actually in my Marley twist video. Keeping your fingers right up underneath in those spaces really helps you to keep control of it. It helps for your fingers not to hurt. It helps for your wrists not to hurt. And you just keep on going in the braiding motion. So I like to go down a couple of revolutions. So revolutions are 1, 2. When you braid 1, then 2. So that's my 2 because I always start braiding with my right hand. So I'll go 1, braid my left 2. Once I get down probably about 3 or 4 revolutions, depending on it. If I feel like it's in there really good and sturdy, I'll switch to how my hands are now. So I start as if I'm installing, I'm about to cornrow to the scalp. And I actually braid as if I'm gathering up hair, although I'm not gathering up hair. Okay, that's another way to make sure that it's very tight. Starting it as if you're starting a cornrow. Keeping your fingers right up underneath in those spaces. Okay, braiding down about 4 revolutions. 1, 2. That's 1, 2, 1, 2. You know how you do one hand, then go the other hand. That's revolution. Okay, so doing about 3 or 4 of those. as if you're doing cornrows. Now you're not picking up, you've picked up all the hair at the start, okay? But you are braiding down as if you are for about 3 to 4 revolutions, and then you switch to underhand. That way you can braid much faster. I always keep my gel on hand. I use my gel by Joy Naturals. It's very nourishing, very moisturizing. I absolutely love it. It absorbs into the client's hair instead of sits on tops and cakes up. It's great for the edges. My clients love using them for their edges. Okay, so I continue to use that gel because I want the hair to be as sleek as possible, because the hair that we are using is very straight. So I like to kind of go down the shaft as I'm moving my fingers in the braiding motion to make sure that it's really flat. Okay, that her hair is really flat and it's going is laying flat inside of her braid. You want to make sure those ends are tucked in as much as possible, because you want those to be protected, okay? So I keep going and I keep going and I keep going, all right? As I mentioned earlier, I try to make sure that I get past the client's hair. And once I do get past the client's hair, to seal my braid, I like to do what I call confuse the ends, okay? So I'm going down. I'm not sure when I start with this slow motion video. But all I do is I start taking very tiny pieces of another section and borrowing it to the section that's more than likely in the middle. I can do them on any side, but most of the times I like to feel as I'm going down. If I feel like a side is becoming thinner, I'll go ahead and give that section a little bit more hair, but nothing too drastic to where it changes the braid. You want the braid to be nice and flat and consistent. You don't want it to be noticeable. So you only want to take little pieces at a time, but not too little to where when you're barring it, you're not taking enough to where it's starting to thin out and the braids are becoming uneven. Okay. And then I just keep on braiding. That's the best thing you can do when you install on micros. Have time, be patient, and just keep on braiding. Whatever you do, don't stop, don't slow down. Just keep on going. Those sections are going to get smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. All right, I'm going to let y'all sit here and watch for a second, and then I'm going to come back and we're going to discuss edges. All right, so if you have been rocking with me for some time, you know how I am on the edges, okay? We do not compromise our hair for a style. So Andrea is opting to leave out that more sensitive part. So every time we were to get that part to look how it looks right now, we would say, okay, it's long enough, it's been, not messed with for a while. But then we just realized that part could not take it. So she said, you know what, Robyn, I think let's just not even. And we've been just slicking it down, and it's been so cute. And she has had that little edge area has been able to stay nice and healthy and unbothered. So we move that to the side. So any area on your edges that you feel like you're already having problems with, I repeat, do not put that in braids. If you feel like the section is too big, then maybe micro braids are not for you. If you feel like, oh well, I just don't want to leave any of my hair out, then maybe micro braids are not for you. Or you should go ahead and put in your head that you may not have the results that you want from your actual hair after you take or remove your micro braids. So please be mindful of the condition of your hair prior to installing micro braids into your hair, especially when it comes to your edges and your nape area, as they are the most sensitive parts and are the first and easiest to go. Yes, the hair is lightweight. Yes, you're only adding a little bit of hair. However, you are adding hair to your scalp that is not coming out of your scalp. So you are still adding weight. No matter if it's lightweight or not, it's still weight. So you also have to be mindful of parts that are delicate, like your edges. All right, so back to pre-parting up here. These sections are a little bit shorter as opposed to the other section when I was talking about how I don't like to do many rows. So right now I'm just parting out some rows, moving it to the side. I have worked with Andrea's hair for years, so I know that this side is I can do this, and just go back and put a little bit more product on. It doesn't take me too long to get to those sections. So I'm able to pre-part a couple of sections on the left side and some on the right. Again, that helps me with my time. So as you can see, I am parting bigger. Even though I'm leaving out some of her edges, I'm making sure that the first row that I'm parting for her micro braids around her edges is bigger than what I would normally part. Same thing when it comes to me parting as I'm parting now. So I've already made the column. Now I'm kind of making the rows. Those are parted a little wider than normal. The reason I chose to do this is because with micro braids, they're already so small. I do not want to make the hair that I'm adding any thinner. I'm also thinking about the client when the client goes to take out her hair from her micro braids, okay? I'm also thinking about that. So if I'm encouraging you to continue to wash your hair and moisturize, your hair is going to be getting wet. It's going to be reverting back every time to its natural state, or it was going to want to, so it's going to make the braids tighter. So you have to think about how it could tangle if that part were to be way too small. We don't want that, okay? So anywho, I installed it as I explained earlier. Also installing the braid as if I'm doing a cornrow, like as if I'm picking up hair along the way, although I'm not. Around the edges really helps too, because it's just no tension, guys. It's no tension, okay? And you'll also notice that when I part around the edges, I have more hair toward the perimeter of her edges than the inside. So I won't necessarily part that even. I'll part more on the outer edges and then a little less on the inside. So probably about 2/3 to 1/3 is how I'll part it. Again, I'm thinking about preserving the client's edges. Okay, I'm thinking about, okay, when she goes home, she's going to want to manipulate her hair, after it gets a little bit of new growth. And I want to make sure that I'm doing my part on making sure that I'm installing it correctly so that she doesn't receive bad results when she goes to take her braids out. Okay. So you want to make sure that you're parting the hair very well. You're braiding down the shaft, going past and confusing the ends. I don't tie the ends. I don't do anything after that. And my clients don't have problems with their micros coming out. So that's something I've done for a very long time. When my friend, a friend that I had used to braid my hair, she never, not confusing, she never tied the ends of my hair. When my mom did it, she never tied the ends of my hair. And then when I started doing it, I never tied the ends of the hair. I guess I just figured out from them, how it should be properly installed so that it doesn't come out. And then, of course, trial and error, so over time, really realizing that, oh, okay, I can do it like this, and understanding how it's not coming out. That part really, really, really helps. So you keep on going. Make sure you do that around any area, especially that's a shy area. You always want to make bigger parts, and so that you're able to use the same amount of hair when it comes to micros. If you do end up having to use a little bit less, just really be mindful. And if you're having to use extremely, extremely small sections of hair, then maybe micros, you have to think about, maybe they aren't, necessarily for you. So just be mindful whenever having your micro braids installed. All right, so once I have completed the entire install, my cleanup is basically the same for all of my protective styles, and that is moisturizing the client's hair, starting them off with a good moisture routine. That way they'll pick up maybe 2 to 3 days later, depending on their scalp condition. For her, we do probably about every 2 days, just to be on the safe side. Every day, spritz with the Roots Moisture Mist. Every other day, oil with the Roots Hair and Body Oil Enhanced. So I spray a good amount on the shaft of her hair. You always want to spritz your hair first. Remember that your moisture comes from your water. So the Roots Moisture Mist is rose water, and it has a few essential oils in there to help aid in moisturizing the hair. All right. So use that, and then you want to follow up with your oil. If you like to do a cream, then you do it either before the oil or after, depending if you like to do the LCO or the LOC method. I personally just do the LO method amongst myself and all of my clients, and I find it to be very lightweight, very nourishing. The oil that I have is jojoba, sweet almond, and grapeseed oil, and it is very lightweight, very nourishing to the scalp. It seeps in and it doesn't sit on top. All my clients love it. I love it. I like to, again, start them off with a very good moisture routine. So I'm making sure I get her scalp. I make sure I get her a good amount, because she does have drier scalp area. She has medicated shampoo that she does have to use to kind of help her, move along, to continue to have as clear of a scalp as possible. So this also aids in that. Then I take some, I guess I'm telling y'all, I try to make sure my clients are taken care of, okay? You shouldn't have to go home and mess with your hair, not right after you get it done. I then like to take some in the palm of my hands and just rub it, going in a downward motion along the shaft of the braids to where I feel like her hair has stopped. There's no need, I'm just kind of raking through that part with my fingernails, but there's no need to put it on the whole length of the braid, only to where your hair stops. You don't need to moisturize the weave, you need to moisturize your hair. So I'm just continuing to like pull out any loose shed strands. I do that the whole time until I'm like done with the whole style. So you'll see me do that on and off, just to make sure all those little free strands are as free from her as possible, so that's not something that she has to worry about too much when she gets home. She's wiping the oil. It's super light, guys, so it like runs down really fast and then it like absorbs in. It's really, really nice. So yeah, I do not have this part on camera, but whenever after I do the mousse, I kind of like to go and afterwards and snip along the outside. So I don't well, each section I'll actually, when I'm done with a section, I'll go through and snip those straight pieces. How do I know it's not her hair? Well, she's natural. She doesn't have straight hair. So those ends that are sticking out is from when the hair is folded over. So I don't necessarily go through every single braid. I don't feel that you need to. I believe that with the mousse, and then as the days pass of you wrapping your hair, it's just going to lay down and it's not even going to be noticeable. I don't feel like you have to go through every single one of them. But for my sanity and also for a more clean finish when we're done, I do like to go in a couple of those sections. Like I said, after I finish a section, I clip those. And then once I finish putting the mousse on at the top and laying it down, I try to lay down as much hair as possible, so that we don't even have to run into the fact of accidentally clipping a client's hair. I'll go along the shaft of it and cut off those very, very straight pieces. And again, promise me, you will be able to tell. So I was telling you earlier about her edges. We don't compromise the style. I didn't put any of that in braids. She said, don't do it. I said, yes, ma'am. Shapam. And we didn't do it. And after she took these out, she still had that hair and other hair in that area. So she was able to leave that open to cater to massage. And so I'm just kind of doing the other side. She does have some of her hair out on the other side as well. I apologize for you guys not being able to see this side. But just remember not to compromise, finding ways to camouflage without compromising your hair. So this is what we were doing. So laying those down, getting those nice and cute. We don't do too much, you know. This is a very grown woman here. So we can't do like all the little swirls and swoops. It's like, you know, just plain Jane classic me. And that's what we do. And again, raking through just to make sure it's nice and it's set for her. Again, I apologize for not knowing exactly what hair we did use for her install. I do know it was his and her hair company. I don't necessarily know what type of hair it was that we used though. So I hope you all enjoyed this video. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope that I was able to help you all. If you know somebody who needs help with micro braids, thinking about putting micro braids in, who you think this style would be so cute on, share it with them. Give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, if you love the end results of this style. Subscribe if you're already not a subscriber of this channel. I plan on teaching until I can't figure out anything else to teach anymore on here. So I hope the tips and tricks that I give you all are helpful. Thank you all again so much for tuning in. I will see you all next time. Peace and blessings.